Hi everyone and welcome to this week's Monday Memo, where today I'd like to talk about one of the key elements for those of us in finance who wish to get ahead and make a lasting impact. It's actually quite important that we ask the right questions, strong questions that get to the heart of the matter and help us gain insight into the necessary clues to solve the most meaningful problems in our organizations. And the great thing with this is that we're not the only profession that's looking to ask right questions to solve what's most important. Like, for instance, doctors have to ask questions to get underneath what's troubling their patients. Salespeople who are trying to figure out how their customers have particular pain points to go solve. And amongst my favorites are actually police detectives who have to ask enough questions, good questions, to get to the bottom of the crime, or enough clues to go solve and figure out who committed the crime. And one of my favorites is probably Lieutenant Columbo. As some of you might know of him, he was played by Peter Falk. His TV series back from the 70s. We didn't have much TV as kids. So these were the type of shows that were on TV, and that's where I got to learn his unusual line of questioning. He was a very unassuming and sincere police detective, and his questioning was very indirect, which made him look a bit random and unassuming at times. I guess I probably come across a bit like that myself, but it allowed him to build airtight cases against the suspects he was questioning. And I actually have been using his approach. I call it the Columbo Manoeuvre, and there's actually a few parts to it that we can all follow. The first part of the first step is to begin by engaging in casual conversation that makes it about the other person. So like Columbo would normally start by opening with casual questions. For those of us in finance, this is actually quite hard because it might feel a bit like we're dumbing down. But it's really important to put the other person at ease, getting them freely talking. And Columbo's got a very good demeanour, and his sort of apparent incompetence or confusion is very unassuming. It makes him look very harmless. And, as I said, in finance, we're normally the ones expected to be, to be all-knowing of our numbers and give accurate and credible advice. So, this maneuver is not for the faint-hearted, but, let's listen to the other steps or see what you think about those and how it can be useful for you. The second step then is actually to slip in an indirect way, the relevant question. So when the other person or people are actually relaxed, Columbo would then sort of sense that good feeling of rapport and indirectly slip in the question he really wanted to find out more about. So in one episode, he actually wanted to know whether or not the person drove a red car. So he'll identify something red in the room and use that to get onto the subject of a car in a similar shade of red. So he might say something like, "Hey, that's a nice chair, I used to have a car exactly the same colour as this. Chevy it was." And the suspect might say, "Hey, I've got a red Chevy too." And Columbo might say, "Have you? Well, mine was a pretty good one." And the suspect then would probably say, "Well, mine's a 56 special convertible." Columbo said, "There aren't too many of those around." And the suspect unknowingly would say, "Yeah, I got it from a guy down the street. I think it was 52nd Street." And now Columbo has found out a very useful clue without the other person ever really realizing that they've given the game away. And I can see Columbo as a finance professional, or if he was anyway, when he'd be working with his business partners, I imagine him sort of saying things like, an FP&A, if we were tasked to try and find out some extra budget from a budget holder where they could find that extra money from. The budget holder might say, "I haven't got any extra room in my budget to make the 10% savings you're asking me to." And Columbo might say, "Let me ask you this, what am I doing here?" In order to try and draw some answers out of the budget holder as to where you can perhaps help. Another scenario is in commercial finance, wanting to get the sales rep to engage in some thinking about improving a pricing proposal. The sales rep might say, "Our competition's cheaper than us." And Columbo might then say, well, it looks like we won't be getting any business from them then on our current proposal. To sort of, throw out there, it's like, oh, right, okay, what can we do about this? Or, let's say an executive wants a particular bit of analysis very quickly. Well, if you want to figure out how important that is or how urgent it is, you might say, well, I don't know how long it could take. Let me call IT and see if someone down there could let me know when the system is available, to really get a sense of urgency, So there is one final step to this, and it's, I call it, one last thing, because after every interview, or at the end of every interview Columbo used to have, he'd usually thank the suspect profusely and step towards a door, stop, turn back and say, oh, just one more thing. Because this would be typically when the other person's defenses are low and they just wanted to get rid of him because he'd taken up a good bit of their time. And, in finance, I find there's particularly useful questions on this one. You could sort of say, I guess I misunderstood you. What did you say? Can I take my technical hat off for a moment and be more an advisor for you? And it's just like, again, it might come across as dumbing down a bit, but essentially it's a really great way of getting the other person we're speaking with to open up more and help solve the challenges, or at least get closer to their pain. And like every form of good communication, sincerity is critical. We cannot contrive this process. The goal is simply to make the conversation about the other person, and along the way ask them strong, memorable questions to draw out answers, solutions, or pains from those we're asking the questions of, not to manipulate them. As much as I'm coming across saying it's more like a maneuver, it really is actually about coming up with the best solution for the other person. And that's why we bring on the guest mentors to the Strengthen the Numbers show, so we can learn from their approaches to question what works well, what doesn't, their mistakes, hard-won lessons, and similarly deconstruct what works step by step, so that you can learn and practically figure out how to solve the most meaningful problems in your organizations and go on to have more fun, rewarding, and successful careers in accounting and finance. So look, really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please remember to let your friends and colleagues know about it. We're on all the major platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, and Spotify. Please leave a review, subscribe, and again, always enjoy when you reach out to us on LinkedIn and ask questions and let us know where we can perhaps help. So until next time, take care of yourselves, and let's keep on building our strength in the numbers.